Daydreaming about dragons. I am kind of sitting in the afterglow of a game I just ran, Blades in the Dark. It is our investigative game where the characters are actually bluecoats who are investigating a case for the emperor, basically. It's called an imperial mandate. Their house rules are being written by some friends, and they're really good and a lot of fun. It's neat to run a game inspired by Sherlock Holmes and True Detective in that setting, which is mostly a crime setting. So there's so much crime everywhere and such a amazing and vast underworld that it's a really fun place to be. Tonight I ran a game, and there were a lot of things I really liked about it, but the way the dominoes fell was really neat. The way the dominoes fell were really neat. So one character wanted to go back to this restaurant. The restaurant was run by a gang. The gang got charmed by another character because they had shared a heritage and a cultural background. And then a later job, they used that gang as part of a kidnapping attempt so that someone else thought that person was dead and they could get them to admit their crime and record it. And it was just really cool the way things fell. It was a situation where one player suggested something and then another player fed off that. It was one domino falling after another, and every player, including me, knocking over a domino, but it all makes it feel like a big, glorious accident when it works, and it was just really cool. It was one of those things that only happens in gaming, where one thing leads to another, and leads to another, and leads to another, and it all makes sense when it's happening, but when you look back on it, you're like, man, that's amazing. It's amazing that happened tonight. Really, really cool that they all picked up on those details and decided to roll with them and run with them. It was a lot of fun. And it was also nice because I took a shot to the head a week and a half ago. I fell because of a blood pressure issue, and I got a concussion. And so for the past 11 days, I've really felt like I've been putting bits of my, brain cupboard back into place, right? I feel like it's just all over my pantry. My consciousness is all over the pantry, and so the part of my brain that's healing is slowly putting things back in the cupboard and back on the shelves and back where they're supposed to be. And so to do the thing with my brain, one of my favorite things, which is gaming, and do it successfully and have it be an awesome game, was really fun. So that is incredibly gratifying. And I'm just kind of decompressing and getting myself together before I go to sleep. And it was good. It was really good. A fun night. That case is almost over. Then we'll move on to the next one. I'm looking forward to that. And that's about it. Another cool thing about that game was I had kind of almost a set piece for the beginning, where I basically narrated a montage of all the violence that had happened in the game so far, and went over those moments, because the last game had ended with a player saying that they were going to do violence to someone and get revenge. And so I went over all of the violence that had been done in the game. It was really cool. It was really kind of a cool way to start the game on a weird thematic note. And I also I had kind of daydreamed, as I do, as we all do, I hope, a set piece where they met the undying emperor. And I talked to my wife about it, and I was like, hey, I've got this thing in my head, and this is what I want to do. And she prompted me to do it. I said, well, it's only going to happen if they roll this particular die roll, and this particular thing happens on a random table. And she was like, no, just do it. Just do it. You don't need to. You don't need to wait. And she was right. And then when I talked to Strash about it, Strash was like, yeah, if you've got a cool idea, you should go for it. So it was a good lesson for me in not letting the system kill a cool idea. The system is there to inspire cool ideas, not block a cool idea. And it really was a cool idea. The scene where they met the Undying Emperor was I think not only was well done, and I was happy with it and the way it came off and it was dramatic, but it was thematically really needed. And I didn't do it because of that. I did it because I thought that's what would happen next. But it just so happens that it broke up a roadblock in the game that was really cool. So that's me. I hope your gaming is going well. Drop me a line. Let me know how it's going. Let's get to the inspiration goat, shall we? Okay, inspiration goat. I hear you. We're going to touch back on True Detective. Last time we talked about True Detective, I talked about monsters and the way True Detective used monsters. This time, I want to talk about the way, especially in the first season, a bit in the second season, not so much in the third season, that True Detective uses the setting and the sense of place as a way to create a murder mystery. And I don't mean a murder mystery as in... there are some very formulaic ways to do mysteries, right? Where you meet the murderer in the first couple pages, and then there are a bunch of red herrings, and then, oh, nope, it's really that first person you met. That's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in the type of an investigation, maybe more than a mystery. I'm thinking about an investigation, right? And the difference to me is that with an investigation, you don't necessarily have to know the murderer, but the murder still can be very personal to you. Okay? And I like the way that True Detective makes investigations that are very much about the setting, because they have monsters very much in that setting. Okay, so I'm going to get specific, and then I'm going to go to some fantasy cities, and I'm going to talk about how I would do it in those cities, how I would use this idea in those cities. Let's rock. So, first season, True Detective. If you haven't seen it, don't worry about it. It is set in Louisiana, and the reason why that is important is because the writer draws on Louisiana's history of flooding and the way it destroys records and the way it covers up the murderer's serial killing for decades. And it's that detail that really allows this monster to flourish. Also the interesting bit of religion and the way that there is I mean, one of the characters says, my grandmother loved her some Jesus, but she had a lot of that Santeria in her too. And there's something about that line that's just very much in the show. And then that character who's a pastor looks at something that the murderer is leaving behind its sights, and he says, "Oh, it just seemed like something that you give kids to do to tie sticks together, give kids something to do." And the camera pans to the cross in the church, right? Not so subtle thing about religion there. But what's interesting about religion is how complicated the Catholicism can be, and how it can interact and synthesize, I guess, with aspects of paganism that are fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And then it can just take this hard turn and become something absolutely monstrous, as it does in that show. But what I really want to think about is Louisiana and the landscape and the flooding, the way that the rural and the urban kind of meet in weird places all throughout that show. That's the stuff. It happens again in the second season. My least favorite season of the three. Maybe not as bad as people say it is, but definitely my least favorite of the three. And the third season, I feel like, isn't so much about place as time. And you definitely get the feels of these different eras. But I don't get the feeling of the Appalachia. It's not quite, and I need to watch it. I've watched the second season a couple times. I watched the first season maybe a dozen times. I need to watch the third season again. And maybe if I do, that sense of place will come through for me quite a bit more. So I'm holding off. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm happy to be wrong. So I want to talk about how I would do that. And that is highlight a sense of place when I'm making an investigative game. Okay? And I'm going to draw a difference, a line between investigative and mystery. I feel like with mystery, you've got a certain type of formula to work with. Whereas with investigative games, the person you're looking for is very likely a stranger, right? Okay, good. Moving on. It's not that the butler did it, unless the butler did it. So how would I set a game in Waterdeep, right? So there are two things that occur to me in the history of Waterdeep that I would really want to dig into in an investigative game. One is the Masked Lords of Waterdeep, and the other is Waterdeep's really strange history with slavery. Okay? First, the Masked Lords. The lords who run Waterdeep are masked, and no one knows who they are. I'm not even sure how they get chosen. And that's interesting to me because it shows a real fear of the populace knowing who they are and what led to that fear. So I want to delve into the history of whatever slaughter of lords happened, hundreds of years ago. And I would make it up. I would add this into the history. But I feel like with the Masked Lords, there's something inferred there that I'd like to dig into. So the old slaughter of lords, or whatever it was that happened, and the Red Court, where everyone showed up to court and was killed, and maybe talk about the chaos cult that was trying to, destroy the rule of law by doing that. And I think the interesting thing for me in this investigation, because they're starting to kill masked lords again, is that I would make them very anti-feudal law, and they'd have a really good point, right? So, and you got to kill a few lords before you get to a republic, as they say. So that's one thing I would do. The other thing is, upon reading Waterdeep in the North ages ago, the way the way slavery is done away with in Waterdeep seems really dicey. It seems like the Lords of Waterdeep haven't really let go of their slaves. Or if they do, they have them off-site. But they still might be making money off of slavery. So I would definitely have someone get killed who uncovers that a lot of the lords are making a lot of money with Zentel Keep and the Black Network, and then go from there. And really have the noble families of Waterdeep be found to be entirely despicable. So that's one way I would do it. Okay, let's go to another cool city. Let's go to Sigil. Sigil? The Nexus City, the city of doors, right? What stands out to me about Sigil is the Lady of Pain and her labyrinth, right? So I'm not sure how. Oh, another thing that's interesting to me about Sigil is that gods are not allowed in it. So yeah, definitely would be some kind of murder where they find a dead god in the city. And how did this guy get in? And why aren't gods allowed in the first place? And was the Lady of Pain the lady of something else once? Was she, and now she's the Lady of Pain, and now she's not talking? That interests me. It reminds me of the Neil Gaiman Sandman comic,
where delight becomes delirium. And I'd want to look into that. What was the Lady of Pain before she was the Lady of Pain? Maybe she was the Lady of something else. So that is the the kind of investigative thing I would do with a dead god, and how did this god, break the no gods policy? How did they get in here? And then why is there a no gods policy? And we got to get some answers, right? With the investigative game I'm running right now called the Ghoul Case, because the drug they're looking for is called Ghoul. I had originally in my head some kind of a murder mystery or murder investigation, and then one of the players said, I think Strash said, I'd like it to be a drug case, and my character was involved with this drug, and their gang was wiped out because of it, and they don't know why. I was like, oh, cool, I know why. And immediately, as soon as he said that, I was like, whoop, I know why. And I got to delve into the making of the Undying Emperor, which is a pretty cool foundational thing in the setting that we got to kind of delve into while also investigating really pertinent things that are important to us right in front of our faces. So, lots of fun. So, what am I saying? Am I saying it could be misconstrued that I'm saying dig up some part of the setting that no one cares about and make your investigation about that? No. I would dig up some part of the setting that you find really interesting and make an investigation that the players are invested in, and make the unveiling of this piece of history part of an important thing, so that as you're going through different investigations, you're learning about the city. Because crimes and monsters don't happen in a vacuum. They happen as a result of the time and the place that they're in. And so I want to make my monsters in that time and in that place. In order to confront a monster, you have to confront the system that created it. So I want to look at that in every case, and look at the history, look at the setting, and then tease something out of that, so that it's kind of like a fun history lesson that is suddenly very pertinent. There we go. Thank you, Inspiration Goat. I liked going over that again. That was fun. All right, let's get the info at the outro. If you would like to support Daydreaming About Dragons and help me create more of this stuff, there is a support this podcast button on the Anchor app. I appreciate that. If you would like to support it another way, you can also purchase my book, The Dictionary of Moo. Got a few dozen copies left before I go to my next printing. And it was created between the three mythological points of Barsoom, the Bible, and Call the Conqueror. Those three mythological points in the universe interest you. You want to see what's in the middle? Pick it up. It won some awards. People say nice things about it. I'd love to hear what you think. If neither of those things work for you, for whatever reason, then another thing you can do is drop me a line and let me know what you think. Let me know what the show is inspiring in you. Let me know what's going on at your gaming table. Let me know what tools you're using. Let me know what one of these segments inspired in you. I would love to hear from you. Did you read something that I suggested on Inspiration Goat? Fantastic. Let me know. Would you do something a little differently than I said I would do it? Great. I would love to hear the tools that you're using. I'd like this to be a conversation rather than just me speaking into the void. So I'd like to hear from you. Want to hear what you have to say. And I hope to hear from you soon. I will see you next week. Hope your gaming is going well. Hope your summer is going well. Hope you're getting some sun, some swimming, some hiking, processing some vitamin D. I'll talk to you soon.